All righty. Well, we'll go ahead and get started since we are limited with time today. So I'm Shanielle Griffin. I am a senior recruiter for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. And we're going to be talking about interviewing skills today, more specifically virtual interviewing. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll try to get through these slides with not a lot of talking, just enough to get the point across. That way we do have a few minutes for any type of questions that you may have. All right, the virtual interview. Why should you select me? So you've went through the process, you've applied, you've put in your application, and so you've gotten the interview, and then you say, now what? Guess what? It's time to breathe. You have gotten over the application, all of the questions and qualifications that you've read. So now we just want you to breathe. We want you to take in that deep breath. We want you to enjoy the moment of even getting an interview with your selected company. One of the things that we always tell candidates and folks that are looking for jobs is to research the job. You need to know what you have applied for, right? You can't go into an interview not knowing what the job is about. So I always tell people, as a good rule of thumb, is to copy and paste the job description. If you cannot download it from the website, definitely copy and paste, because you will need that later. You'll need that for what the job description tells you and also what the qualifications are. The next one is network. Now, we know with the pandemic and not being able to be in person for most companies, networking may pose a little bit of an issue. However, if you know someone at Blue Cross or Erlanger or TVA or some of these other companies that you're applying for, you can always send them an email. And you can always get on a Zoom call or, a WebEx or even a phone call. Networking can help because you kind of get the inside scoop of the company that you are applying for. That could be anywhere from asking them what the dress code is to maybe asking, more about the department that you are interviewing for. Know where you're going. Is this going to be virtual or in person? Now, if you're interviewing with Blue Cross, you will be virtual. We are not on campus. We have not been on campus, and we are not expected to return to campus anytime soon. However, there are industries that are still in person. We have VW, Amazon, of course, the hospitals. There are employers that are still in person. So know for sure where you're going. Be prepared to sell yourself. Now, don't be too arrogant or too, sure that, I just got this job, but we definitely want you to be ready to prepare to sell yourself, sell your experiences, let them know who you are. Anticipate questions. Okay, this is an interview, so there will be questions asked. So anticipate those questions so you will have those answers. Practice, practice, practice. I've said this for many years that I've been in the HR business. I'll tell this story. I used to practice in front of stuffed animals. And then I would practice in front of mirrors. So definitely practice and kind of get out your nerves, go to Google, download some questions that may be asked in an interview and ask yourself. Or if you have someone in the house, maybe they can help you with those.
Yeah, we actually
Yes.
have a question. James has raised his hand. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind inviting his question.
Not more of a question. It's what happened. I have the opportunity of getting a interview for a TVA position for the spring, and I'm pretty sure I nailed the interview. But I just want to know, how is it like knowing your interviewer or getting on the same, trying to connect to your interviewer? How's the best way to do that?
So you've already had your interview. So the best, or actually the rule of thumb, would be that you send the interviewer an email. So you can send an email just as a follow-up to say, hey, I'm interviewed, I'm still very interested. Just kind of want to know what the time frame is for your decision. And then you wait for the interviewer to email you back. I will say this, multiple emails may deter the hiring manager. So I would caution you all to not send back-to-back emails. Definitely give the interviewer at least, 24 to 72 hours to respond. If they don't respond, within a week, I would say that it would be safe to definitely send them another email. You can also reach out to the recruiter. So whoever the recruiter is that has contacted you for the interview, you can actually reach out to the recruiter as well. And then they will take on the duties of contacting the hiring manager to follow up.
I appreciate you taking that question, Shudyal. And then Kimberly asked another question that I think you could speak to. Her question is, what if you don't believe that you're good at selling yourself? How can you maybe add some capacity or maybe some more confidence there?
Well, again, just from personal experience and also just experience with being in this industry, practice is going to be your best friend. I can't say that enough. When I talk to individuals and crowds, and when I've done interviews, it's more of the practice that I've done before that has gotten me to being more confident. So knowing who you are, knowing what your experiences are, knowing that you are confident in your experiences and what you've done as a person, that's going to get you there. Now, there are people that are naturally shy. And then there are some of us that have learned how to speak and get through interviews. So definitely practice. If you need to practice in front of an actual person, that may help you versus practicing by yourself. So definitely, do that. I always say before you go into an interview, breathe. Get out the nervousness, shake your hands, all of that stuff. But yeah, just keep practicing, and I can guarantee you that the more you do interviews, the better you'll get.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and let Shunyal get back into her slides. Thanks.
All right. So how to prepare for a virtual interview? Of course, test your technology. And that's with anything. If you're doing an interview, a presentation, whatever you're doing, you need to test your technology. And I would say test it at least a week before. Test it maybe 3 days before. That way, if your audio is working, if your camera is working, if something is wrong with your laptop, you can at least contact the interviewer or the recruiter to kind of help you with that. Maybe you need to change from your phone to your desktop. Keep your virtual identity professional. I say first name, last name. That's it. You should not have any, nicknames that your family calls you or, any of those. Make sure you keep it professional. Set the scene. Setting the scene is kind of like Rob and I. We have the Mind the Gap virtual background behind us. You definitely don't want clutter in the background. You don't want a picture kind of hanging. So you definitely want to set the scene. Minimize distractions. If you have other people that are in the household with you, please let them know that you have an interview at whatever time, whatever day it is. That way, if they need to leave the house or if they need to go to a different room, then that'll help you out with the distractions. If you have pets, then of course you would need to secure your pets. Sit down prepared. Again, even though you are doing a virtual interview, this is as if you were in person. So the manager or the folks that are on the panel are still looking at you as if you were in person. So make sure that you sit down prepared, have your notepad in front of you with a piece of paper. Don't be scrambling to, set your laptop up and the charger and make sure that you are prepared. Practice and monitor body language. This was a huge one for myself. I tend to talk with my hands. I tend to kind of look up in the sky sometimes when I'm talking. And so I've had to practice that. The more I've practiced body language and having eye contact has definitely helped me with interviews. And then of course, dress the part, which we're going to get into on the next slide. So how do I look? Is it business casual or is it professional? either way, whatever the company environment is for the company that you're interviewing for, you should definitely have appropriate attire. These things can be found out once you get the invitation to interview. You can ask the recruiter, hey, just have a question. I'm interviewing with Blue Cross next week, kind of want to know how I should dress. The recruiter will let you know definitely. If you're going to be in our mailroom, it may just be a polo. You know, if you're going to be in our food services, it may be a polo. If you're going to be with a VP, you may want to dress up a little more with a suit coat or some type of button-down shirt for the guys. For the ladies, same thing. You want a nice little sweater or some type of blouse or dress, perfect. Be well groomed. Make sure your hair is combed, of course. Again, I know that we're talking about virtual, so we do get a little relaxed when we think about virtual because we're in our home setting. We're not actually in person, but you definitely need to make sure that you are groomed. Make sure that your hair is done, for the guys, clean shaven, and all of that. Be on time. I will tell you that depending on the platform and the interviewer that is hosting the interview, they may have a waiting room, they may not have a waiting room. This is going to be a little different from if you were in person, because in person you would be able to probably sit in a lobby or a room. However, you should still be on time for a virtual interview. That could be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Here at Blue Cross, we actually let the interviewees know what time we want them to log in. That way we know that our managers have already concluded with the previous interview or meeting or whatever they had on their platform. We actually tell our interviewees what time to get on there. So if that's going to be a question for you, make sure that you check in with your recruiter. And again, be confident. You know yourself best. And so that's where the confidence is going to come in. Again, we don't want you to be over arrogant, but we definitely want you to be confident in knowing who you are. Avoid distractions, turn off all devices. That means your TV and your music. So whatever you were listening to get yourself calm and ready for this interview, definitely turn that off because we don't want that to be a distraction. Any type of background noise, your pets, maybe you have little kids at home, even background noise from a window. If you are in an area where there's traffic or people that may be outside, you may want to move to a different place in your home to avoid that background noise. No chewing gum or food. I understand we're virtual, so we do get a little bit more relaxed. We're at home. The person can't really see us, but you definitely don't want to be caught chewing when they're asking you a question. Now, how to prepare for interview questions. We kind of discussed this a little bit early on. Google has a plethora of questions that you can download or write down to practice before your interview. Blue Cross specifically, we do competency-based behavioral questions. Honestly, industry-wide, most people use this type of based questions. However, if you're going to be in an environment where they're using your skills more, a VW, Amazon, maybe even some of TVA, there may be skills-based questions, and I can answer any questions about that if needed. But for the purposes of this session, we're going to do the competency-based. Competency-based behavior questions are always, tell me about a time when. Tell me a time when you've had a conflict, with a coworker. Tell me about a time when you've had a project. Those are the type questions that you will be asked if you are, of course, interviewing at Blue Cross and any other company that uses this type of questions. Use this opportunity to demonstrate knowledge, skills that are relevant. This is the time now where you're going to show who you are. This is the time where that confidence is going to start coming in now. So, hey, tell me about the time when you had a project. Well, you know what? Just finished a project last week. Let me tell you a little bit about that. And that's where that comes in. Be a star. This is kind of going to go over some of the things that we've just previously discussed. So describing context when you've performed a job or you faced a challenge at work. Perhaps you were working on a group project or you had a conflict with a coworker. This is the time now. If that manager asks you these questions, this is the time now to describe those. Describe your responsibility in the situation. Perhaps you worked on a project that was under a tight deadline, or maybe you resolved a conflict with a coworker. Then you describe how you completed the task, or how did you meet the challenge? You know, what if there was a deadline? Let me tell you some things that I did to meet this deadline. And so then you can start lining up your accomplishments and the actions that you took with your project. And then finally, let's talk about the results. All right, I had a project. We had a 2-week deadline, had a conflict with my coworker, but this is how it all ended up. So definitely take those things into consideration. Make sure that you pinpoint and you outline exactly what was done, how you got there, and then what the results were. All right. Now, I know when you do an interview, it doesn't seem like it's just a conversation. You're nervous. You're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? But if you think about it, it's just a conversation. Take your time. Don't be afraid to take a moment to say, can you give me a minute to think about that? Or you may say, can you repeat the question? And as they're repeating the question, you're then analyzing what they're asking you, so then you can answer the question. Stay focused and ensure you've answered the question. When you're nervous, or when you have a lot of information that you've thought about previously, sometimes you start to ramble. So definitely stay focused and ensure that you've answered the question. But again, take your time. Here are some of the mistakes that we see. Coming unprepared. Again, this is virtual, so you wouldn't think, oh my gosh, I got to have 5 resumes in hand. But if you are in person, you still may want to take a few extra resumes, excuse me, just in case there are other people that have been added to the interview on that day. But definitely still coming prepared. Make sure you got your notebook. Make sure you got a pen and pencil. Make sure that you've written down some things on your notebook. Maybe some things that about your experiences that you don't want to forget. So make sure that you come prepared. Negativity in general. What I mean by negativity, if they ask you a question about a previous job, you don't want to go in there, oh, you know, my manager didn't like me. I didn't like this coworker. They always did this to me and I just couldn't stand it. They don't want to hear all of that. So definitely make sure that you keep your negativity in check. Sharing personal troubles. We have all been through something, I know, this year, you know, just personal, you know, just being sad because you can't get with your family or just whatever the situation is. They don't want to hear about your personal troubles. You definitely don't want to deter the interviewer with some of the things that have happened in your life. So definitely keep those under wraps. Not smiling or being enthusiastic. Again, being enthusiastic is great. You don't want to overdo it, but you want to be just enough to let that person know, you know what? I've researched your company. I love Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. I really want to work with you guys. And always smile. Rob, I think we had a question, so I was going to pause.
I appreciate that. James, do you want to go ahead and ask your question, please?
You said that you shouldn't give any personal troubles, but what if you state the trouble, but then you say, but I have grown and this is how?
Okay. So your personal troubles, so let me say this, and I think this may be on another slide, maybe the last one. When an interviewer asks you, for example, can you tell me a time when you've had a conflict with a coworker? Or can you tell me a weakness? That I wouldn't so much say that that is a personal trouble. That is just something that we all have to deal with in the workplace. So I think those are two different circumstances. When I say personal troubles, going through a divorce, you know, having some issues with a family member, your plumbing is out. The roof is leaking. Those are personal troubles that we should definitely be aware of when we're interviewing. Your personal life should not interfere with an interview. Now, did I have a conflict with my coworker? Yes. So we were involved in a project, and it was just me and this other coworker. That coworker had ideas, and I had ideas as well. And so we were just troubled on how we could make this work in the tight deadline. What we did was we actually compromised. So we took my coworker's ideas and we took mine, and we kind of mixed them together, and it actually turned out perfect. We got an award for this project, and so that shows the interviewer that you have conflict resolution, right? So I think those are two different things. Did I answer that okay, James?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great.
Yeah, and Kimberly is here as well with a great question about, it's very related. It reads like this: can it be a positive for them, an employer, to see your resilience through some struggles?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But when we say struggle, again, so there's a fine line. So let me just say that. There's a fine line between giving information about your personal life. I say that because we're human, right? So we're human, but what we don't want to happen is for some type of bias opinion about you as the interviewee because you've had some personal troubles. We actually caution our managers not to even ask. That should not even be a question on the table to ask the interviewee anything personal. You should not ask, about overtime. Well, can you work overtime? Or, how many kids do you have? Or are you pregnant? Those are some questions that are just fine line questions that you should not ask. Now, if your personal is somehow related to your professional life, and it's not getting too deep in the weeds of your personal, and you can exhibit my personal struggle has actually helped me in my professional, then that may be allowed. But I would just caution you all to definitely stay away from personal.
Yeah, I think I've given the advice that it's fair to give a real weakness, but it needs to be a survivable weakness. And so if you're going to be in a data entry role or a role in which you'll be entrusted with information, and you say, well, a weakness of mine is that I've been told that I'm very sloppy with details and that my work ethic isn't very strong. Like, right. That might be true, but as someone who's interviewed for a position, I would not lead with that. I would come up with something else that would be true. However, it would also be survivable. So I think the examples that you can share to, again, demonstrate that resilience, Kimberly, I think that matters. So again, be thoughtful about this, practice, just like Shuniel has mentioned.
Yes. And really quickly, I would say this. So I'm gonna give my personal experience with interviewing. One of my weaknesses was technology. I'm just not tech savvy at all, at all. And so that was one of the things that I would say in the interview is that, one of my weaknesses is I'm just not tech savvy. However, what I've done to overcome some of my weakness is that I've signed up for Excel classes, or I've signed up for PowerPoint classes to kind of help me through that. So again, back to what Rob said, definitely state your weakness, but come back around and tell us how you're working towards that weakness, or if you've already mastered it, tell us how you mastered it. All right. Now, how to close like a boss. Once your interview has concluded, you've gotten the confidence, you're feeling great, then you need to express your appreciation. So you need to say, Rob, thank you for the interview. I'm very interested in UTC and working for reiterate your interest in the job. Also re-emphasize your skills. I'm very interested in being a professor, but I definitely wanted to let you know that my skills in X, Y, and Z, I think that they would, work perfectly for this position, and I'm very interested. And then always ask questions. I think you should have anywhere from at least 2 to 3 questions that you need to ask the interviewer. Some of those questions really quickly: what does my first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days look like? Definitely ask that. Ask them what type of projects they're working on. If it's a project-based position, what projects or what tasks, what duties are you guys working on at this point? Are those some of the things that I would be, able to get in on once I am, hired on this position? And then definitely follow up with the interview again. Don't be too, overzealous about getting in there, but definitely follow up with the manager or the recruiter. And that is it.
So I want to just lead the chorus of expressing my appreciation. Thank you so much, Shanielle, for one, your friendship, but then also for your time and your experience and your expertise today. And again, if there are other questions that our participants might have about interviewing, I would love to be able to respond to them and think through those with you. Our entire team is interested in that, and I'm sure that there are dozens of really, really valuable partners in the community that work for great organizations like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, that they want to see their organization succeed, but the way they do that is by helping others succeed. And so if they can help you in your candidacy, that would be helping them and helping others. And so that's very, very consistent with who Shanielle is and the organization is. So thank you so much again for your time. We're delighted to have been able to host you and for you to participate in Mind the Gap today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for having me. I do wish each of you and your families well and stay safe. Rob, if you have questions or anybody else has questions, please let me know. Email me. We may get another forum or session, or if there's some things that someone wants to email me, please share my email address.
Very good. I appreciate that permission. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, y'all too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I'm going to transition.